Well, friends, good morning. Welcome to Good Shepherd. I just want to add my welcome. Thank you for making worship a priority today. My name is Matt Fulmer, and I'm the lead pastor here. And so today we're in our final week of our sermon series called United, where we've been exploring really the United Methodist Church. And I remember at the beginning of this series, our staff members and a few other leaders were like, "Really, Matt? We're going to talk for 4 weeks about the United Methodist Church? How boring is that going to be?" And I was like, man, I promise you, I don't think it's going to be boring. So I don't know about you all, but it's been one of my favorite series that we've had here so far. I've enjoyed it, and I hope that you've enjoyed it too. But again, we're in our final week where we're talking about some of the characteristics of this early Methodist movement. You know, Methodism, as a little bit of a review, if you haven't been here, it was a renewal movement in the Church of England around the 1700s. And it was started by a guy named John Wesley, and we've been talking about some of the features of early Methodism and as it was a movement and a revival in Christianity. And today, we're ending the series with maybe the earliest feature of that Methodist movement. And to get at that feature, we kind of have to rewind and go back to when John Wesley, when it was in his mid-20s. You see, before he was a priest in London and starting to do all those service projects, before the Methodist movement really started to take hold in England and even in America, Wesley went to college at Oxford University. And after he graduated from Oxford, he actually returned back there to be a professor. In his role as a professor, he was teaching future clergy members and other church leaders that were going to be church leaders throughout the Church of England. And since he was teaching future church leaders, John had this assumption that his students would have this deep faith, or at least would have a desire to be committed to their spiritual lives and grow deeper in their faith. But pretty soon after returning as a professor, he noticed that the opposite was kind of true. Sure, these church leaders, future church leaders, they would go to church. They would spend a lot of time in worship. They'd read and study Scripture as part of their academic responsibilities. But Wesley began to notice that despite doing all this stuff, it didn't seem to impact them in any real sort of way. See, Wesley would say later that they had the form of religion without its power. And what he meant was these folks and many others seemed to be going through the motions of church, but it didn't really impact their life in any real way. They didn't seem to be growing closer to God or developing that kind of hope that Jesus talked about. And so Wesley saw all these people going through the motions of church, and Wesley, he just kind of got afraid a little bit, kind of got scared that he would eventually fall into that rhythm and just be going through the motions too, that he would lose what he would later call his spiritual zeal. And this bugged him. It bugged him so much that he shared his concern with his brother Charles. And him and Charles, well, they decided to do something about it. And what they did is they started a small group. They didn't call it a small group. Later, they would call it actually a band. But they would get together 4, 5, 6 other guys, and they'd meet 3 or 4 times a week. And they actually met in John Wesley's office. Here's a picture of it. It's still at Oxford today. You can go in. You know, that red carpet. I think that's where Methodist churches got their red carpet from right there. But the purpose of these small groups, the meetings was simple. It was straightforward. They wanted to deepen their faith. They wanted to maintain that spiritual zeal, like Wesley said. And when they met together, they asked each other, every time they met, they asked each other 4 questions. And I'm going to put the questions up on the screen, and they were this. They were, what sins, first and foremost, what sins have you committed since our last meeting? I was like, dang, John, way to start off strong, right? Like, this is all right, here we go. And then second, what temptations have you had? And then how did you overcome those temptations? Well, John, what if I didn't overcome any of the temptations? And then 4, what have you thought, said, or done that you think might have been a sin, right? Just maybe, if it's in that gray period. These are intense questions. Now, as an aside, when other students or professors found out about this group and these questions, they started making fun of Wesley and the group that met together. You know, they had these big insults like Bible moths. I don't know where they came up with that in the 17th century, but there you go. And then they started calling them Methodist. And they called them Methodist because they believed that there was a method to growing in our faith. And you can guess it, this is where we got our name, from an original insult from Methodism, and we became United Methodist. Sort of funny. But when you look at these questions, man, they're intense. But this small group, man, this experience had a profound and lasting impact on John Wesley. So much so that later, as the movement took hold and started expanding, Wesley required everyone who was part of the Wesley movement, the Methodist movement that Wesley was leading, to be in a small group, and they had to answer these 4 questions. See, Wesley knew that while we experience faith on an individual level, faith was never meant to be done alone. See, he knew that faith, it could be an individual experience. It often is an individual experience. I mean, we can pray alone. We can come to worship and God speaks to us individually in our individual paths. But if we want to deepen our faith and embrace the promises that God invites us into, we need other people. That's why these small groups played such an important role for Wesley. Now, small groups, before we think and believe that Wesley came up with them in some form or fashion, that's not the case. Wesley did not invent small groups. In fact, if you look all the way back in the earliest days of the church, they were meeting in small groups. They were doing faith in community and in relationship with one another. In fact, one of the earliest pictures of the early church is in Acts. And if you're unfamiliar with Acts, it's the book right after the Gospels, and it talks about right after Jesus went up to heaven, what the early church did and how they operated. So it's often looked at as kind of the pinnacle, or at least a model of how we're supposed to do church together, how we're supposed to relate together. And so I want to read to you one picture or snapshot of the early church, and I want you to see, just ask yourself a question. How are they relating to one another in this community? So this is Acts chapter 2, starting in verse 42, and it says this. The believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the community, to their shared meals, and to their prayers. A sense of awe came over everyone. God performed many wonders and signs through the apostles. All the believers were united and shared everything. They would sell pieces of property and possessions and distribute the proceeds to everyone who needed them. Every day they met together in the temple and ate in their homes. They shared food with gladness and simplicity. They praised God and demonstrated God's goodness to everyone. And the Lord added daily to the community those who were being saved. Okay, there's a lot that we could talk about in this scripture, in this kind of snapshot of the early church. They're selling their possessions, and they were having it all in common. And now, this sounds like a utopian situation with the early church, but in just 2 chapters, they're fighting with one another, like they're arguing. So they're humans, right? And they're trying to figure things out. But when you think about and reflect on kind of that snapshot, did you notice how they were connected to one another? I mean, out of everything, did you notice how the early church related to one another? I mean, the story says that the people in the church, they were meeting in houses every single day. They were eating together. They were learning together. They were praying together, talking about what they learned from the different leaders and what they were teaching. And this is important because, again, as a model of church, this is what we want to be thinking about and reflecting on. And this has really become our model here at Good Shepherd, especially for our small group ministry. I mean, if you're in a small group, you know this, right? You know that a lot of the things that we just read that we do in our small groups, when we think about it, we meet together, sometimes in houses, sometimes in small groups, sometimes up here at the church. And when we meet together, we talk about what people teach, what we talk about on Sunday, talk about the sermon and how we're connected to the sermon. We talk about our lives and how that teaching applies to our lives. Often, maybe our favorite part is many of us eat together, right? Like cook together and make food and celebrate that, and then we pray together. But we meet in small groups just like John Wesley and those early Methodists and just like the early church, because we know that if we want to experience the true life that Jesus really talks about, then we need to be connected to other people. I mean, if we want to reach our full potential in a number of different places, we need other people around us, and we need a small group. And I've been thinking a lot about that lately, that fact, that not just in my faith, but in other areas of my life, that if I want to reach my full potential, then I need other people around me. And this struck me a few months ago on Father's Day. See, my wife got me a present for Father's Day, and I was excited about it. I opened it up, and I opened it up, and it was a membership to a gym. specifically to workout classes. Now, months later, I still don't know if there was like a secret message, like, hey, what's going on with what your messaging is here to me. But, I didn't think I really needed a workout class. I liked my gym rhythm or my workout rhythm. I feel like I didn't need anything different. I went to my basement 2 or 3 times a week. I had a couple weights down there, a little, video that I followed. It seemed to work for me. I was doing fine on my own. Plus, I liked my commute. This commute was a minute. It was just down the stairs. It was great into my basement. But she got me this gift, and so I decided, okay, I'm going to go to the class. So I show up, and I thought, I'm in pretty good shape. I can keep up with these folks. It doesn't matter. I can do this stuff. And that belief pretty quickly just went up in flames. Because when the workout started, I thought I was doing all right, but then I looked over and this person was running faster than me. I was like, okay, I got to pick up the pace. Then I looked over and this person's lifting heavier weights than me. I'm like, okay, I got to lift more weights. And then I was getting kind of just really gassed. Like I was gassed. And so I looked up at the clock and I thought, okay, we're probably almost done. And we're like halfway through. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to make it to the end, but I'm ready to quit. But I can't quit because nobody else is quitting. So I just kept going. And for this workout, when it was finally over, I was shredded. I hadn't worked out like this in years. I couldn't move, and for days I was sore. And so laying there on the gym floor with the sweat starting to pool around me, it occurred to me that it's easy for me to give up when I'm working out by myself. When it gets tough, it's easy for me to say, I did good enough and I don't need to worry about it. But when someone else is there next to me working as hard, if not harder than I'm working, I don't want to give up. Maybe it's the competitive streak, but I don't want to give up if they're trying hard and I quit. And it occurred to me again that if I want to reach my full potential, whether it's working out or even translate it to faith life, or translate it to another area of our life, if I want to grow or do something big in my life, I need other people around me to encourage me, to not let me quit, so I can help them when they're ready to quit, so I can push them further than maybe they want to go, and they can push me further than maybe what I think I can go. Even if that commute is further than the basement. And this truth struck me again as I was watching the Olympics this past weekend or a couple of weeks. You all know Jordan Childs. There's some drama around her score even today, and they're trying to figure that out. She's an Olympic gymnast, though, from Oregon. Highly decorated. Well, in 2019, Childs, I don't know if you know this, decided to move from Oregon to Texas so she could work out alongside of who? Simone Biles. Now, why'd she do this? Because training, of course, with the best, what does it do? It makes you better. If she wanted to reach her full potential, she needed others around her challenging her, encouraging her, pushing her. And so it's not an accident that Childs made the Olympic team in 2020 and 2024 next to Simone Biles. They did it together. They supported each other. They challenged each other. They encouraged each other. You see, if we want to grow, if we want to do something big in our lives, we need other people around us encouraging and challenging us. And we do this in so many areas of our lives. Not just sports, not just physical health, not just faith. We have parents groups that help us be better parents. Or recovery groups like AA or NA that help us and support us get through and navigate addiction. There are professional groups and mentors who help us in our careers, even while we may experience it individually, and it may be individual stuff that we're working on, we still need other people to help us. And faith is no different. We may experience faith individually. I get it. But we need each other to help deepen and develop our faith life. It reminds me of that African proverb you may have heard. It says this: if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. This is why here at Good Shepherd, it's why we say if there's one thing that you do in addition to coming to worship, there's one thing that's going to help you in your faith, in addition to regular worship, it's joining a small group. It's because we can go fast alone, but we need each other together to go far. Because it's in a small group where we take that sermon, what we talk about up here on Sunday, and we really apply it to our life. It's in a small group that we take these concepts of faith and actually talk about how they're impacting us, the challenges and the places that we're experiencing hope. A small group, it's where we get really connected to the community, where we know one another's stories, where we share our own story and build relationships that help us go further than we think we can go on our own. But even as I talk about small groups, I know it's easy to think, well, Matt, you're a pastor. You're supposed to like this kind of stuff. So I thought, okay, instead of just listening to me, I don't want to invite someone up from my small group. So right out of the gate, I'm just going to invite Matt Fitch up. So Matt, would you give him a hand real quick? Now, Matt's a friend of mine, but we weren't friends, really a year ago because, I know, right. But Matt and I got in the same small group. Now, first, I got to say, before we get into any of this, you're killing the shoe game today. I like shoes, and these are good shoes,
it's the
friends.
one pair of shoes
you got to know,
approves of,
your son approves of. Yeah, he's going to be a senior, so that's a big deal. So, all right, Matt, just let us know. Kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, and then also, what was your experience with small groups before joining the small group that we're in?
Yeah, so I been a member of Good Shepherd for about 10 years, so really engaged. Me, not so much. My family, yes. Before then, I had never been a part of a small group. So church to me, even growing up, and then obviously with Good Shepherd was, hey, we attend on Sunday, and maybe we talk through it on the weekday, and for the kids, Little Lambs, and then obviously VBS and everything of that nature. But for me, it was more the Uber to go to church, essentially, and hearing the message and everything of that nature.
So 10 years, you're not even in a small group.
No.
Right, not a small group. Your kids go, your wife is in a small group, Vicky, she leads a small group.
She does, yeah.
But you're like, hey, it's for them. I'm just going to come to worship. I'm going to
tell me how awesome it is.
Yeah, all right. I want to hear about it.
I'm good, right.
Yeah, but I don't want to go.
Right.
Okay, all right, that's fair. Maybe some of you feel that way, right? Okay, so what got you over the hump then? What helped you kind of say, okay, I'm going to try out a small group?
Well, every Sunday, you're really convincing, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
so
I don't know about
exactly,
that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, 10 years, here you go.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would say for my son and his small group, he was the first of our family to be able to be a part of it. The high school small group that he went, I mean, that was life-changing for him.
Sure.
Just to have that forum to be able to do it. And then my daughter, who was a middle schooler, to be able to do it as well. And then my wife, obviously, just seeing their connection, the value they get from a small group, I just, I was like, I don't have any more excuses not to try it at that point. Good, bad, or ugly, but that was the honesty from that standpoint. The other piece was I got invited. So if you would have left it to me to sign up or start one or what have you, probably never would have happened. But hey, try it out. Let's see what that looks like. I was pretty excited from that standpoint.
Yeah, sometimes we just need like a clear,
correct.
Come do this with me.
Yeah.
We talk about it with church sometimes, with worship, but sometimes it happens with small groups too. Okay, so you've been in a small group for right at a year, coming up on 9 months or something like that. What's one or two things that you have enjoyed or that you've learned or that's really impacted you? Yeah,
I mean, great question. I would say two things. One is I went in there thinking, okay, this is going to be, just a time to kind of talk through what we heard from the sermon or just connection or college football or whatever it may be.
Sure.
We have some really opposition in our small group of college football alliances, so we won't get into that. But anyways, and so friendships, I think, was the biggest thing. So I didn't go into it expecting to actually gain that friendship from the small group that we had. That was one. The second thing is, it's interesting. None of us really agree on anything. I mean, we all have different lives. We came from different backgrounds. We see the sermon a little bit differently. But that connection, to be able to hear that, it's broadened my horizons to think other ways. And, we get very focused in what we're thinking and where the circles we live in and stuff.
Sure.
That's probably been the biggest thing. So.
Yeah, one of the things you said, Matt, that strikes me is, and we were sharing this in other places, like you've been going through some transitions, and it's helped you with those transitions because, you don't need more friendships, really. You have plenty of relationships and friendships, but these friendships have been a little bit different, right? And so can you speak a little bit to that? Just what that experience has been like. It's not just college football, but there's other things that we talk about.
Yeah, and it's, we're all in different stages of our life. And so, but we all have some similarities in regards to being fathers and raising, whether they're high schoolers or middle schoolers or just coming up. And so I feel like we kind of gravitate towards each other because, if they have little kids, they can see and we can talk about our experiences as far as what that is. The biggest thing I would say is, and I didn't expect this going into it, you don't have a lot of individuals or friends or just groups that you can really get deep with. Like you can actually say, hey, this is bothering me, or this is what I'm going through, or this is my experiences, with no judgment. It just, hey, let's talk about this. And kind of all of us, I think, when we joined the group, came into it thinking, oh, wow, this is a place we can actually have those conversations. Mm-hmm. A little bit deeper than maybe I have with some friends or, some other groups that I have. So,
yeah, that's good. Think about yourself a year ago. You're like, I don't really want to do it. What would you tell somebody that's like on the fence, thinking, okay, I may not do it, but it's probably not for me. It's for my kids. It's for my wife. It's for my partner, whatever. What would you say to somebody like that?
Well, I would definitely say a year ago, I would have bet you money I wouldn't be on a stage talking about small groups.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know what you did to me, but anyways, that's
it's one thing.
Yeah. I'm a believer. I promise. So no, I would say try it. Again, I went into it thinking everybody else is doing it. I want to be a part of the cool group. I want to do this. I don't have any more excuses not to. And then getting that invite, I think, was probably the most powerful thing. But I would say two things. One is try it, but it's not a one size fits all. So whether you get engaged or you don't, try multiple ones if you can. Just find the group that fits what you're looking for from that standpoint. And then I think the second thing is no expectations. Just go there, just listen, contribute where you can. I will tell you, if you can listen, and I was probably a listener for probably the first few weeks of us doing it, but then you start opening up, then you see the value that you're able to do it, and it becomes powerful. And it's something that, and I think we talked about this the last small group, it's something that on a weekly basis, I can tell the difference of whether I go or don't go, just to have that forum or just that hour of reflection that I didn't have previously.
Yeah. Man, thanks for sharing. I know it's not easy to come up here and share, and thanks for being, willing to be open.